My wife cheated on me with my best friend on my birthday. My birthday started like any other day. That was the first red flag. 33 years old. No balloons, no breakfast in bed, no excited voice telling me to get ready for a surprise. Just the faint sound of the shower running, my wife's silhouette behind the frosted glass, and a quiet, unspoken tension I couldn't quite place. It wasn't that we were fighting. We weren't. But we also weren't not fighting. You know? That kind of middle space couples end up in sometimes, where everything is fine until you realize it's been only fine for months. Her name was Tessa. We'd been married for almost 6 years. Together for 9. And up until recently, I would have told you she was my person. Not in the loud, social media way. But in the quiet, everyday way. The way she always handed me a coffee just how I liked it before I left for work. The way she always kissed my shoulder when I was doing dishes. We didn't do grand gestures. We did small consistency. Or at least, I thought we did. My best friend, Eli, had called me the night before. "Still good for tomorrow?" he asked. "Of course." "You bringing the bourbon?" He laughed. "Please. I'm bringing the bourbon." That was our thing. Every year on my birthday, we did a small get-together. Nothing big, just a few friends, backyard lights, music low enough you could talk over it. Eli always brought something expensive and smoky. Tessa usually made lemon bars, even though she didn't eat sweets. Tradition. Reliable. I held on to that word a lot back then. Like a rope. I went to work like normal. Got the usual happy birthdays from coworkers, the cheap card passed around the office with half-legible signatures. At lunch, my boss let me leave early. I picked up ice and a few extra drinks on the way home. Tessa wasn't there when I got back. Just a note on the counter. Ran out to get a few things. Be back soon. Can't wait to celebrate you. T. Nothing unusual. And yet, something tugged at me. I shook it off. Started setting up the backyard. String lights, coolers, folding chairs. Eli showed up around 6. He brought the bourbon. We sat outside, clinked glasses, and I let myself relax. It was a good night. Until it wasn't. Looking back, I don't know the exact moment the night changed. Maybe it was when I caught them laughing together in the kitchen, a little too closely. Or maybe it was the way Tessa pulled her hand away a fraction of a second too slow when Eli passed her something. But the truth? The moment I knew something was wrong came from something smaller. Subtler. We were out back. People were singing. Tessa disappeared to get more plates. Eli said he'd help. They were gone 10 minutes. And when they came back, they were flushed. Breathless. And not in a way I could explain. I didn't say anything. Just smiled. Sipped my bourbon. Watched the people I loved most laugh and dance under warm light, wondering why I felt like a ghost at my own party. The guests left slowly, trickling out in pairs. Hugging, waving. Saying things like, "Happy birthday again, and you too throw the best parties." Eli left last. Said something about work early the next morning. Tessa gave him a hug at the door. Too long. Too soft. I told myself to stop being paranoid. And then, when we got into bed, I kissed her goodnight. She kissed me back. But not really. And that's when I knew. I didn't sleep. I waited until her breathing steadied, then went downstairs and checked her phone. I know. It's a terrible thing to do. The worst. But when something in your gut is screaming, logic goes quiet. I scrolled. Messages from Eli. Some recent. Some not. Flirty. Late night. Borderline romantic. And then one photo. From that night. In our kitchen. His hand on her waist. Her shirt lifted slightly. His mouth on her neck. It was time-stamped. 8:12 p.m. I had been 10 feet away. Outside. Smiling. Sipping bourbon. Celebrating a life that was already burning down behind my back. I sat at the kitchen table with the screen glowing in my hand, reading the same message thread over and over again. I wasn't looking for more proof, I had plenty. I was looking for a reason. A motive. Some glimmer of justification buried in the digital debris. But there was none. No, this was a mistake. No, we didn't mean to. Just casual messages that had clearly been going on for months. One from Eli read, "Tonight's gonna be rough. Don't know how we're gonna act normal." And one from her, just the night before. "It's his birthday, so let's just get through it. Then we'll talk." I couldn't even cry. I just stared at the screen, jaw locked, heart somewhere down near my stomach, pounding slow and heavy. They'd planned it. Calculated around it. Whispered over my head like I was a blind, deaf fool sipping from a red Solo cup in the backyard. At 2:47 a.m., I put her phone back. Carefully. I went back to bed. Didn't touch her. Didn't speak. Didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling and thought about every time I defended Eli. Every time I told Tessa that marriage was about weathering storms, that things would get better. Every single time I ignored the gut feeling that said something's off. Because I didn't want to be suspicious. Because I thought trust meant never checking. Because I believed, stupidly, that the people you love would at least have the decency to do the hard thing, to be honest, before they decided to burn the bridge. The next morning, I made coffee like usual. She walked into the kitchen in her robe, hair still a little messy, rubbing her eyes like nothing had happened. "Hey," she said. "Good party last night." I handed her a mug. "Yeah," I said. "Everyone had a great time." She sipped, turned toward the sink, humming something. My mouth opened. Then closed. I couldn't do it yet. I didn't want a screaming match before work. I didn't want to see her scramble for excuses, or worse, look relieved that the secret was finally out. So I left. I spent the day pretending. Pretending I was okay. Pretending my marriage wasn't crumbling in slow motion. I answered emails. Sat in 2 meetings. Laughed at something on Slack. And all the while, I was replaying every moment from the last year in reverse. That time I came home and they were laughing on the porch. That night she told me Eli was like a brother and I should be grateful to have such a loyal friend. That week she said she was working late even though her job never demanded overtime. I had been asleep for so long. And they had been wide awake. That night, I didn't say anything either. Just came home. Ate the dinner she made. Said thanks. Watched a show on mute while pretending to scroll my phone. She leaned her head on my shoulder halfway through the episode. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. Because I knew the moment I did, it would all fall apart. And I needed one more night to decide how I wanted it to end. The next day, I didn't go to work. I waited for her to leave. She kissed me on the cheek as she headed out the door, said something about dinner plans with her coworkers. I just nodded. Then I sat down and started writing. I wrote a letter. Not a dramatic one. Not some heartbroken manifesto. Just facts. A list of what I found. A few printouts for backup. And one question at the end of the page. When were you planning to tell me? I left it on the bed. Then I packed a bag. Not everything, just what I needed. A week's worth of clothes, my laptop, a spare charger. I didn't slam doors. Didn't call Eli. Didn't even tell a friend. I just walked out. Because there's a moment where staying becomes harder than leaving. And I had finally crossed that line. I booked a hotel across town. Cheap. Quiet. Safe. I checked in, dropped my bag, and sat on the bed, staring at the wall for a full hour. No TV. No music. Just breathing. And it wasn't until I exhaled, slow and sharp, that I realized something. I wasn't broken. Not yet. I was angry. Not just at them, but at myself, for giving so much trust to people who treated it like a bargaining chip. Later that night, I turned my phone off. Not because I was scared she'd call, but because I knew she would. And I didn't want to hear what she had to say. Not yet. She'd had plenty of time to speak. She'd chosen silence. She'd chosen Eli. On my birthday. While I was 10 feet away. That's not a mistake. That's a decision. I turned my phone back on the next morning. 12 missed calls. 8 texts. All from Tessa. The first few were casual, confused. Where are you? Did you leave for work early? Then. Why is your bag gone? What is this letter? We need to talk. Please. Then came the shift in tone. This isn't what it looks like. You're making a huge mistake. Call me. I'm begging you. I read them once, locked the screen, and tossed the phone across the bed. Not in anger. In exhaustion. Because that's the part no one tells you about when someone cheats. It's not just the betrayal. It's the script that follows. The recycled excuses. The rehearsed denials. The desperate "but we can fix this please," delivered like duct tape over a cracked dam. I didn't want duct tape. I wanted honesty. And for once I was going to get it. That afternoon, I went home. I didn't text her first. I wanted to see the truth on her face before she could mask it. I walked in through the front door and found her sitting at the kitchen table, the letter still in her hand. She stood quickly, eyes wide, lips parted like she'd rehearsed a speech and just forgot every word. She started. But I held up my hand. Sit. She sat. I stayed standing. We didn't speak for almost a full minute. I watched her squirm, chew her lip, avoid my eyes. I let the silence stretch until it became unbearable. Then I said, "How long?" She blinked. What? How long has it been going on? She swallowed. It wasn't. Don't lie to me. Her eyes welled instantly. Like a reflex. 6 months, she whispered. I nodded once. And for the first time in our entire relationship, I didn't feel love when I looked at her. I felt nothing. Was it ever going to stop? I asked. She hesitated. That was the answer. I looked down at her, sitting there in the chair where we used to drink coffee together, and realized she looked small. Not physically. Just diminished. Like the pedestal I'd unknowingly placed her on had finally crumbled, leaving her sitting in the rubble. I didn't mean for it to happen, she said quietly. That's a lie, I replied. She winced. I didn't plan it. You didn't stop it either. I was lonely. That stung. Lonely enough to sleep with my best friend? On my birthday? She covered her face with her hands. And cried. I let her cry. Let her sob into her palms like the guilt was too heavy to hold alone. But I didn't comfort her. Not this time. Because every tear she cried was water under a bridge she'd already set on fire. Eventually, she looked up. Red-eyed. Voice shaking. I didn't know how to tell you. I wanted to. So many times. But I thought, if I could just end it, and fix things between us. Fix what, Tessa? We weren't broken. She said nothing. I stared at her. And said the one thing I'd been holding in. You didn't just cheat on me. You used me. You used my loyalty, my trust, my routine. You relied on it to hide what you were doing. She closed her eyes. And Eli? She flinched. Still talking to him? She shook her head quickly. No. I ended it. When? The night of the party. I gave her a long, flat look. You mean after the part where you snuck away to hook up with him while I was outside with my friends? Silence. She didn't even try to defend it. I could have yelled. Slammed things. Asked 1,000 why questions that wouldn't matter. But I didn't. Because the only thing louder than her betrayal was the truth. And the truth was, I didn't want her anymore. Not even as a friend. Not even as a stranger. I wanted distance. So I told her. I'm not staying. Her eyes widened. Please don't do this. You already did. I'll go to therapy. No. She opened her mouth again, but I was already walking upstairs. I packed the rest of my things. She followed me from room to room, whispering things through tears. Half apologies. Half pleas. Nothing whole. Nothing that could unmake what had already been done. As I stood at the door, suitcase in hand, she asked. Is this it? Yes, I said. This is it. The day after I left, I woke up in a friend's guest room to the sound of birds outside the window. The light was soft. The sheets were clean. There were no messages on my phone. No unread apologies. No missed calls. Just silence. And for the first time in a long time, I realized silence wasn't scary anymore. It was freedom. I stayed with Marcus, an old college friend, for a few days. He didn't ask for details. Just handed me a spare key and a beer. "You can stay as long as you want," he said. "No questions." That kind of loyalty, quiet, no strings, real, is rare. And it reminded me that not everyone I trusted would betray me. Some people show up. Some people stay. In the weeks that followed, I kept things quiet. Filed for separation. Talked to a lawyer. Deleted Eli's number. Blocked Tessa's on everything except email, where legal correspondence could live. I didn't want closure. I wanted distance. And slowly, it came. I picked up running again. Not because I needed to lose weight or chase goals, but because I needed to feel my body move. To remind myself I was still alive. To sweat something out of my system. On one of those runs, it hit me, this was the first time in years I was doing something just for me. Not to be a good husband. Not to keep up appearances. Not because I was afraid of failing someone else. Just me. One night, Marcus and I sat on his back porch. He passed me a drink and asked, "Do you miss her?" I didn't answer right away. Then I said, "No. I miss the version of her I thought was real." He nodded slowly. "That version never existed," I added. That was the hard truth. And also the most freeing. Tessa emailed me about 3 weeks after I left. The subject line was, "Please read this." Inside was a long letter. She talked about guilt. Regret. How she'd lost more than just a marriage, she'd lost her best friend. That part made me pause. Because the worst part about betrayal is that it doesn't just kill love. It steals your history. It makes every happy memory feel like a lie told in slow motion. So no, I wasn't her best friend anymore. And she had never truly been mine. I didn't respond. Then came Eli. Or rather, Eli's attempt to reach me. A mutual acquaintance texted me that he showed up at a bar we all used to frequent. Asked about you. Looked like hell. I didn't care. There's something sharp about betrayal between friends that cuts deeper than any romance. Because a friend knows your cracks and chooses to step on them anyway. There's no repair for that. Just exit. By the second month, I had my own apartment. Small, clean, quiet. I bought my own furniture. Cooked for myself. Went to bed when I wanted, woke up when I needed, didn't explain myself to anyone. And in the rhythm of that routine, I found something I hadn't expected. Peace. Not the kind that comes with distractions or rebound flings or revenge. But the kind that comes from finally trusting yourself again. One day, I ran into a couple we used to be close with. Dinner parties. Double dates. Shared vacations. They looked at me carefully, unsure what to say. "She told us what happened," the wife said. "She told you her version," I corrected. The husband cleared his throat. "We don't want to take sides." I laughed. Taking a side isn't always about picking a person. Sometimes it's about picking truth. They didn't argue. But they didn't reach out again either. And that was fine. Some people don't know how to stay with you once you stop performing. Let them go. A few months later, my divorce papers were finalized. No drama. No last-minute pleas. Just a digital signature and a manila envelope in my mailbox. I stood at the kitchen counter, holding the envelope, and waited for a wave of emotion to hit. But none came. I just felt done. Not broken. Not bitter. Just done. Like someone who had walked out of a burning house, covered in soot, and realized the air was better outside. 6 months passed. It didn't feel like time had flown, it felt like I'd walked every step of those days. And that was okay. Sometimes healing isn't about speed. It's about weight. About slowly removing the pieces of someone else's damage until your own reflection starts to come back into focus. And mine finally had. I got a new job offer, more responsibility, more pay, a new city. It felt like a clean break in more ways than one. So I took it. Packed what I needed, sold what I didn't. No goodbyes. No backward glances. Just the quiet, satisfying click of a door locking behind me one last time. My first morning in the new apartment, I woke up to sunlight through unfamiliar windows and the sound of life outside, a dog barking, a couple arguing softly, the faint clatter of a nearby bakery setting up for the day. It didn't feel like home yet. But it didn't have to. Home wasn't a place anymore. It was me. I didn't hear from Tessa again. Not directly. But I did hear things. Through old mutuals. Through the occasional social post that floated into view. Apparently, she stayed in the house for a while. Tried to fix things with her family. Started therapy. Deleted most of her social media. Eli moved away. Nobody really saw him anymore. And that felt right. Two people who built something on lies don't usually last when there's nothing left to hide behind. One afternoon, I went for a walk through the new city. No destination, just the rhythm of my steps. I passed a small coffee shop. Inside was a couple laughing over mugs, sharing headphones, their legs touching under the table. I didn't feel bitterness. Just recognition. Love can be real. Even if it wasn't for me that time. Even if it had been poisoned by people I once trusted. It didn't mean the whole idea was broken. Just that version. And I was finally open to the idea that maybe, one day, I'd try again. Not because I needed to be whole. But because now, I was whole. I stopped walking. Pulled out my phone. Opened my notes app. And typed. The worst thing someone can do to you isn't breaking your heart. It's convincing you to forget who you were before they held it. Then I added. Don't forget. Don't become bitter. Just become better. That night, I made dinner. Poured a glass of wine. Watched a movie I picked, not because someone else wanted to, but because I did. And as the credits rolled, I smiled. Because there was no more sadness. No more looking over my shoulder. No more replaying what happened. Just this. The quiet joy of knowing you came through the fire. And you didn't burn. Sometimes people ask how I got through it. How I handled finding out my wife cheated on me with my best friend on my birthday. And the truth is, there's no neat answer. There's just the slow, daily choice to not let it define you. To get up. To rebuild. To remember that betrayal says more about them than it ever will about you. And eventually, you stop remembering the date. You stop counting the calls they never returned. You stop checking to see who's still watching your stories. You just live. And that's the real victory. Thank you for watching the video. Like it if you watched the video to the end, and don't forget to subscribe. Have a nice day.